We're evaluating quadratic functions today, and I want to explain to you the basis of what this means right here. When we have f of x or m of x or g of x or anything, what this is telling you is we decided to name this equation f, because you might have some other equations you're going to deal with. So that's just how they name them. So F rule is this that we're going to go by. Now the X inside means that this equation has some X's in it. So this is a title telling you that what follows is a rule we're going to call F for right now. And that F rule has X's in it. That's all this means. This is what we call functional notation.
Go in there, go down. No.
And it doesn't have to be difficult to understand. Simply means this is the name of the rule, and that rule has X's in it. Now, for what you need to know, the f of x or m of x or p of x or k of x can also be referred to simply as y. So now we have y equals x plus 3 squared minus 2x squared. You can think of it as this functional notation having another name y. Okay, it helps in solving some of our equations. Now, the rest of number 1 says, I want you to solve this function or this equation where I want you to solve the F rule where x is a negative 12. Okay? This rule you could solve over and over again for when x is 7, when x is 3, when x is negative 12, when x is 0. Okay? So this is what they mean by this. So what we do is actually plug in negative 12 everywhere there's an x. Negative 12 everywhere there's an x. So here I go. Here's a negative 12 plus 3 squared minus 2. And remember, we kind of need to plug these in. Always when you're plugging in a value, use parentheses. It's very important right here. So when I get to an x, I start a parentheses, put a negative 12 in it, and then finish it off. Notice that the parentheses are only around the value of x. The squared's on the outside, and that's important. So now we're going to use our order of operations. We know that this is y also, equals parentheses first, correct? So
yes.
First, we have a negative 9 still in parentheses squared minus 2 times negative 12 squared. Continuing to solve, we've done all of our parentheses because these don't count as parentheses. Remember, if they have one thing in them, they are not considered parentheses. So now, after my parentheses are taken care of, please excuse, so I've got exponents next, and I'm going to do both of these at the same time, exponents. Remember that something squared means we're going to take this times itself. So negative 9 times negative 9 is a positive 81. And one thing to keep in mind is that anything squared will always give you a positive answer. always, 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 if it's squared, will give you a positive answer. Minus 2 times 12 times negative 12 times negative 12 is definitely going to be a positive 144. Okay, I've finished all my parentheses, exponents. Now I'm to multiply and divide. Here's my multiply. So now I have 81, still on the screen, minus 288. Kind of need a calculator for that one. So I've got 207. Is that right? Y'all have your calculator? Yes.
Yeah.
So the value of this rule when x is negative 12 will be negative 207. And if you're given this again, and it says, now find f of 8, you're going to do exactly what we did, but now 8 is going to go here, 8 is going to go here, and you continue with your calculations. You doing okay?
Yes.
Yes. Evaluating functions. Now let's go down to the D part. D part. Oh, no, we need to look at number 2. Yes, we need to look at number 2 that has to do with negatives and squaring negatives. You have to be so careful when you are squaring negatives. Let's look at number 2.
So we're on D?
B part, number 2. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
B part, number 2. For those of you who don't have the worksheets, this is it. F of x equals negative x squared. And it says, find f of negative 5. So they're simply saying, use the F rule and plug in negative 5 when you find an x. Now, this is where it's very important to remember that you put parentheses only when you come to the x. Watch this. So now you have y equals negative. Now I'm at an x. And I only put in the x value in parentheses. The parentheses are extremely important. Okay, and when I come down here, I have to do exponents first because this is like a negative 1 times. So I have to do exponents before I do multiplication. Negative 5 squared is like negative 5 times negative 5. So now I have a positive 25. Do y'all see that? Do you understand what I'm saying? These two don't make a positive. You have to do the exponents first and get an answer. Now we're going to multiply. And so your answer is going to be a negative.
Negative 25.
Be careful trying to use your calculator when you're trying to square a negative. Be very, very, very careful. Are there any questions on this one?
Nope.
Okay. Let's look at the next page. Oh, yeah, I was going to go down to the bottom. Now on D part. Down on D part, let's look at number 1. Number 1 on D part. Now, whenever you're working with functions, many times they'll put the rule up in the instructions. So always read your instructions. It says my F rule for this problem, and all 4 of them actually, is going to be x minus 2 squared. This is the rule that they're going to refer to. Now, number 1 says, find this. 4 f of 1 times 6 f of 0, which looks scary, but all we have to do is work this in pieces. So let's find out what this is equal to first. This says I need to find out what f of 1 is, so I'm going to plug 1 in here. I'm going to do this right here. So I'm finding f of 1, so I'm going to plug 1 right there. So 1 minus 2 in the parentheses is a negative 1 squared. 1 minus 2 is a negative 1 squared. Negative times a negative is a positive 1. And then remember that we need to take 4 times that answer. So this answer is 1, but we have to take 4 times whatever that answer is. And so down here for this part, I have the answer of 4. It says I'm going to take times whatever I get here. I need to work the f of 0 first. So f of 0 is 0 minus 2 squared. 0 minus 2 is a negative 2 squared. A negative 2 squared is a positive 4. And then I need to remember that there's a 6 times that. So there is a 6 times the answer I got. So now I have 24 for this piece. And now I take 4 times 24, and my answer to this problem should be 96. I'm making sure. Yes, I want to make sure I didn't do anything wrong. Do y'all see when they mix all this up? So the main things I'm trying to tell you here, number 1 is always look at the instructions, because they may tell you the rule in the instructions. You would be lost if you didn't read the instructions because you don't know what the F rule is. Number 2, you do it in pieces. Find out the F rule for this value. Then when you get that answer, take it times 4, and you've got the first answer. Find out what the F rule is here by plugging in 0. After you get that answer, take it times 6. You have that answer. And then we multiply the 2 together, just like it said to multiply together. Questions?
No.
Doris, are you okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
Good, good. Okay, the next pages are simply telling you how to fill out a function table. So let's move to page 2 just to make sure that you realize what we're doing. Here's number 1. This page has ES1 at the top. And we'll work this first problem.
Already done it.
Pardon?
I said I've already done this.
Oh, good. Well, I'll show everyone else. And that's wonderful. Okay, they give us the rule, the F rule. 3x squared minus 6x minus 19. This is our rule that we're going to deal with, and they want us to fill out the function table. And so the table they give us, they say x and f of x, which we know can also be y. Always keep that in mind. It'll make things easier for you. So I have -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, what you're going to do in this case, you're going to solve this F rule over and over and over again using this value for x, then this value for x, then this one, then this one, and then this one. So you're going to do this problem 5 times. So now, let's do this. So f of -1, because I want the x to be -1, equals 3 times -1 squared minus 6 times -1 minus 19. So I have 3 times a +1, -1 times -1, minus a -6. Do y'all see? The minus is here. This comes out -6 minus 19. Okay, minus a negative turns into a plus, minus a negative turns into a plus. So now I have 3 plus 6 minus 19. When you do that on your calculator, you should have a -10. Is that what you all got?
Yes.
Yes.
And now we're going to do exactly the same thing with the 0. Zero squared is 0 times 3 is 0 minus 6 times 0 is 0 minus 19. That one's pretty easy. -19. We're going to do this again. We're going to do this 5 times. And we're going to plug in 1 for x now. 1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. Minus, now that's not a negative anymore, so I'm just -6 minus 19. With your calculator, you should come out a -22. Think it. 2 more times. We're going to plug in 2 now. So now we have 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12, minus 12, minus 19. These 12 minus 12 is 0, so we have -19. And one last time, we're going to put a 3 in here. X equals 3. And now we have 3 squared is 9 times 3, 27, minus 18, minus 19 is a negative 10. Everybody okay with filling this out?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Good, good, good. Now on the next page, they're actually going to ask you to graph this. Okay? So these are pretty big numbers. On the next page, they won't be big. But to keep from working another problem, I'll show you what you do here. This is a point on the graph. This point is -1, -10. The X goes first, comma, the Y goes second. This is a point on the graph. So we're going to just do an estimate here. So to plot this point, I need to start with the X and the Y. So the X goes first. I always start from the origin and move a -1. And then I go up or down -10. So there's my first point right here. -1, -10. This one is 0, -19. 0, -19. So I've got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 0, I don't go anywhere on the X because it says go 0. Then -19 is right here. This one is 1. We're getting way down there. This one is 1, -22. So I go to 1. This was 19, 20, 21, 22. So 1, 22 is right here. 2, -19. So here's 2. This is -19, so I'm right here. And one more, 3, -10. And -10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 was right here. And so I'm right about here. So now that I've plotted all 5 points on my graph, you will remember that I've told you that anything that's a quadratic is going to be a parabola. It's either going to go this way or this way. So if you can see here, here's the vertex, here's where it turns. It's not a V, so make sure and make it curved and come up through the points, and we add arrows. Come up through the points and we add arrows. This is the graph of this quadratic. What do y'all think? Now on this page 2, you don't have to graph. They just want you to fill in the table. But the reason I went a further step was because of page 3. Because you're going to do the very same thing again. You're going to fill out the T-chart, but then you're going to do the graphing like I just did. Y'all see?
Yes.
You guys can handle this. Do you feel like you can probably tackle this?
Probably.
Maybe, probably. Okay. And then the last page, believe it or not, this is the easiest page. Look what it says. Identify the zeros. What are the zeros?
The
They're-
different
The
points,
roots.
I heard two people. What, Sandra?
like the points on the graphs.
On the x-axis. The
Oh.
zeros are on the x-axis. So the zeros here are -2 and 1. That's all you have to do on this page. Tell
Okay.
what the zeros are. The zeros here are -2 and 1. It's always the points on the x-axis, always. Questions?
I don't think so.
I
No.
haven't heard anything from Mary. Are you okay, Mary?
Yes, I'm here.
Good, good, good. And Sandra's here. I hadn't heard anything. Well, I heard one thing from Doris. You okay?
Yes, ma'am, I'm okay.
Okay, and Rachel, are you ready to attack it? Rachel, you're frozen.
Done
Okay, okay.
it.
Well, for right now, I'm going to stop. Any of you that want to stay on the Zoom,